Hey guys, my name is Naguura, and today I'm going to be talking about the new expansion reveal for World of Warcraft, Dragonflight. Before I get into it, I quickly wanted to talk about my background and why it looks differently. That's because I moved to a new apartment. I'm still in the same area, so I'm still in South Tyrol, northern Italy. But I just moved to a bigger apartment so I can actually have a room where I'm streaming in, which is this. And no, it's not really a closet. There's, more room there. You just can't see it. And we're gonna make it look better as well. I know it looks very like nothing, like I live in a closet or something. I'm gonna work on it, okay? Don't worry about it. I didn't get kidnapped and locked into a closet, I swear. And yeah, let's get into the video. But before I go into more detail, I actually have a sponsor for today's video. So big shout out to Black Desert Online, who have kindly sponsored this video today. And if you can't wait for more dragons in your life like me, then I have good news for you, because Black Desert's new expansion, Eternal Winter, has launched and it features a brand new class called Master Dracania. And what's great is Black Desert Online has also overhauled their new player experience. From level 1, you can play in the new content zone called the Mountains of Eternal Winter. And with their fully rendered cutscenes and introductory tutorials, it means you're part of the current content from day 1. And on top of that, you can try the game for free for 7 days to see if you like it. Black Desert Online is an MMO known for its highly detailed character creator, beautifully designed open world, and real-time combat. Considering all that, no reason not to give it a whirl, right? So if you're interested to check out the game, then click the link in the description below. Thank you very much again for sponsoring today's video, and now we're gonna go back into it. Now let's talk about Dragonflight. So I quickly wanted to make this video to put all of the information that we have into like a TLDR version, because all of the information was kind of scattered around different interviews with different content creators and different online magazines, and then we also had the 1 hour long video. So I'm gonna do my best to put all of the information into this video and also give my opinion on some of the new stuff. First of all, the cinematic. I really liked the cinematic. The Watcher that, put together the thing and it called the dragons and then fell down and it got swooped up by the dragon. I love him. I wish the Watcher would protect me in real life as well. But anyway, I like the cinematic. The weird thing about it was that there was no clear villain that got introduced, right? So there's no villain at all that got introduced, right? We just know that the dragons needed to be called because of something, right? So what do you think about that? Do you think that's fine, or would you rather have some clear goal for the expansion, saying we are fighting this or we are fighting that, or this is the problem right now? Or is it fine that it's a little bit mysterious, and are you fine with just having the dragons as the thing that you're looking forward to? Because I think for me personally, I'm fine with just having the dragons being revealed, because that is a really cool thing to look forward to, and I'm excited. Then they also showed us the new zones, or at least a preview of the new zones. Apparently there's 4 new zones to level through, and then there's 1 extra zone, which is the starting area or the leveling area for the new class and race called the Dracthyr Evokers. So yeah, most of the zones looked really cool. They are kind of pretty mostly, and not full of fell and destruction, so I'm more of a fan of pretty zones and not fell everywhere. So I like that. And then they also said, because of a new kind of flying, it's not really flying, it's very similar to the system that Guild Wars 2 has with their mounts, that you basically have a mount and you can't actually really fly, but you have abilities with your mount. You can glide, you can do a dive bomb or whatever, and you can do a swirl and all that kind of stuff. You can use the momentum of the air to glide around. And it looked pretty interesting. They also said that all of the zones are made for that. So they made the zones really big and wide, and they made I assume they made mountains and hills, so you can jump in the mountain and glide down and whatever. So that sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to it. And they also said that you can customize your dragons, the ones that can have these gliding abilities. And then they also said that you can kind of train your dragon, right? I'm not sure how that will work, if you advance your skills through the campaign or if you advance them through actually individual stuff that you can do by yourself. Not sure. We don't have much info on that. They also introduced a new race/class, which I talked about earlier, the Dracthyr Evoker. They are dragons. The model of it was a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. So hopefully they're still refining that. But those Dracthyr Evokers, they have 2 specs, ranged DPS and healer, called Devastation and Preservation. No other class can play this new race, so it's only them. I hope they change that in the future, because I think a lot of people want to play different classes on that race. But the reason that it's not possible right now is, or at least that's how they explained it, that the evokers kind of tie into the dragon, and you have like dragon abilities. They showcase some of them where you like glide in the air and you like your dragon spews fire or whatever. And they just said it's like tied in. So it makes sense, I guess, because if most of your abilities are being, like spewed out of your mouth as a dragon, then it would be weird if that's a warlock like spewing out chaos bolts from the dragon mouth, right? So I guess maybe that's the reason, I don't know. Then they're also wearing male armor, which is really good because there's barely any other class that wears male armor, so that's awesome. They are mid-range casters apparently, which is very interesting. Ian said they're gonna be between like 25 and 30-ish range. He said there's no specifics just yet, but that is very unique because almost all other range are either like 40 yards or you're a melee and you're melee range, right? There is no real in between. Some melee players have a little bit more melee range, but it's still a melee, right? So I was thinking that maybe it's just some abilities that are closer range. For example, if you think about like shifting power from a mage or arcane explosion from a mage, there's some abilities where even as a caster you have to be closer to use it. So maybe that's something like that, and they just have more of those abilities. Or if actually all of their abilities are closer range. We'll see, because if all of their abilities are actually closer range, then that might create some problems for strategies on bosses and so on. But we'll see. It sounds interesting for sure. And then it also makes it possible for those Dracthyrs, the dragons, to be able to use this new gliding, flying kind of thing without needing the mount. So you can do the dive bombs and using the momentum and the gliding without having the dragon, because you're a dragon yourself. But if you want to use a mount, you can anyway, they said. Then they also said that Dracthyr cannot fly outside of the Dragon Isles, not the normal flying. So it's not like a druid travel form where you can just fly whenever it's possible to fly. Apparently that's not a thing, which I personally hope they change that, because it would make a lot of sense if the dragons could fly, because they're dragons, right? So hopefully that's something they change, because they could just do the same thing as the druid flight form, right? The same restrictions, that it's like a global GCD, and you cannot use it when you're in combat, of course, and stuff like that, maybe. Then they talked about the talent revamp, which is a big thing. I'm really excited for the talent revamp. Basically, they said they want to go away from all of these borrowed power systems that we had in the last 3 expansions, because people got overwhelmed, right? And I agree. Like, it was just way too much borrowed power, and the base spec, the base rotation, felt like it's just incomplete. And they actually said that that's something they felt as well. So now they're going away from all of this borrowed power and giving you a new talent system, the same as we had in like classic TBC and so on. But you're gonna have a class talent tree and a spec talent tree, which is really cool. It looked really interesting. On the picture you can see that the squares apparently are active abilities, the circles are improvements of abilities or passives, and the octagons are a choice of talents. So I think you can choose between 2 talents, which is also really interesting. Then they said each point will be rewarded to you for each level. So when you level up, you get a point for maybe your class tree, and the next level you get a point for your spec tree, and it will just alternate. And once you're max level, you will have a 2/3 of the tree filled with points. So you will not have the full talent tree, but 2/3. So you have to pick and choose what you want in your spec tree, and you also have to pick and choose what you want in your class tree. And I like that a lot. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for people to try different stuff. And I know there's probably just going to be a meta that is like, this is the talent tree, right? But because there's multiple different options, I hope that we kind of evolve different kinds of talent trees for different scenarios, and that would be fine for me, right? If there's talents that are barely used, you can still use them for certain scenarios, for like niche cases, right? Like maybe you're fighting a boss and you need to 4 heal it, but the healers don't manage to heal it. So maybe all of the hybrid classes spec more into healing utility because of that, and then help out the healers. Stuff like that I think is very interesting. So yeah, very much looking forward to that talent revamp. They also said there's going to be interface improvements. The HUD layout is going to be improved. And a lot of people are saying this is a bit late. I agree. It's incredibly late. But better late than never, I guess, right? So they're making everything look a bit cleaner. They make it possible to move everything around. And it's just basically taking up less space. The minimap also looks better and takes up less space. So I'm excited for it as well. I personally don't think I'm going to be using very much of the basic UI, but maybe some, like maybe the action bars or something that are not too intrusive, maybe even the minimap as well, because it does look really clean. So yeah, kind of excited for it as well, especially for newer players, that they don't need to download a million add-ons before they can play the game, and it actually looking good. Then they talked about a profession revamp, which also sounds very interesting. So you can specialize in professions now with talent trees even. So if you're a blacksmith and you want to specialize in certain things, then you have a talent tree and you can advance that talent tree, and then you can eventually create really good items. Apparently mythic level items that you can create, mythic quality. They did say, of course, they want to be careful that the mythic quality items are not basically there from the start. It's not that, a new patch comes out and all the crafters immediately can craft these mythic items and then you just spend 1 billion gold in the auction house. That's not what they want. It's probably supposed to be more of a later in the patch thing, where you need to farm materials and whatnot from probably higher end content. Maybe even something like you need to do mythic raid to get the material to then craft the items. Who knows? They didn't go into too much detail, but it sounds very interesting for people who are into professions. And then they also said something really cool. They're going to implement work orders. So if you are someone who wants an item crafted, but you don't like professions yourself, you don't want to advance it, then you can just bring the materials, go to the auction house and put in a work order. Let's say, okay, I'm gonna pay you 2,000 gold if you finish this item for me, and I give you all the material. And then a crafter can go into the auction house, see that offer and say, yes, I'm gonna craft this item for you. I think you don't even need to provide all the materials either. You can just say, I'm providing half the materials and then I give you X amount of gold. And then the crafter can say, okay, I take half of your materials and half of mine, and I take the gold offer and I craft this item for you. So that is also really exciting and I like it a lot. Then they were talking about reputation changing. So I think the way they think this is going to work is that it's going to be very similar to how renown works. When you get a renown point, you have this interface where you see all of these perks and things that happen when you get the next renown point. So it's like, okay, with this point, you have this new transmog unlocked, and the next point you have this new pet, and with the next point you have a new soulbind thing unlocked, right? And I think that's what they're talking about when they say they want reputation to be more like renown. So instead of having, you're honored and then revered and exalted, you have renown points. And for the 4 different dragon factions, I guess, you can farm renown, and you don't have to choose one that you're farming renown for. You can farm renown for all of them at the same time, and then you will have these things that get unlocked as you go. I don't think they specifically said there's going to be 0 player power involved in it, but they were focusing a lot on, more cosmetic things and stuff that you want to do, want to advance, and if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. but I don't think they specifically said that there's going to be like absolutely zero player power involved. So we're going to have to see what exactly they want to do with the system, but it does sound interesting for sure if that is something that you like to do, right? Then they also talked about alt friendliness as well. They said that they heard the player feedback and they want to make sure that alt friendliness is something that they consider from the very get-go, specifically with that renown, for example. So hopefully that is something that they do immediately. Then they talked about M+. They said that they have quite a few things planned for M+, but they didn't have everything ready to be presented just yet. But the things that they did tell us was that they're going to be releasing 8 new dungeons at the start of Dragonflight, but only 4 of the new dungeons are going to be available to be played in M+. And the other 4 dungeons in the M+ pool are going to be old dungeons that they're going to bring back. I personally am excited for this because I think it really freshens up M+, because that means the first season you play 4 new dungeons plus 4 old dungeons. But the old dungeons are probably going to be dungeons that are not like super recent, right? It's not going to be Shadowlands dungeons. It's more going to be like, you know, maybe Worlds of Genre dungeons, maybe a Legion dungeon, and maybe whatever, right? And then in the second season, they're gonna cycle out the 4 new dungeons that we just played, bring in the other 4 new dungeons that were already in the game but were not able to be played on M+, and then they bring 4 other new old dungeons in. So that means that we're going to be playing a total of 16 M+ dungeons within the first 2 seasons. A lot of people were negative about this, and a lot of people said they don't want this to be a thing. But I personally think it's a good thing because, first of all, 16 M+ dungeons in 2 seasons is a lot of dungeons, right? Of course, some of them are old dungeons, but I think they're going to feel like new, just because they're of course going to be reworked. They're going to change a lot of the tuning. They're going to change some of the abilities maybe as well. There's going to be the new affix. The whole expansion is new. Maybe the dungeons that they're bringing back have never even been in a plus dungeon. So, you know, all of the routes that they're creating and everything is going to be completely new. Even if the design and everything is going to be old, I still think that it's going to feel like a new experience. And therefore, I'm a big fan. And additionally, it also really helps players because whenever a new season comes out in M+, we only have the new affix. And I feel like that wasn't enough for a lot of the players. A lot of the players played some M+ dungeons at the start of the season, and then it was like, oh, just same old dungeons, just new affix. And then after a week, they were bored of M+ again, right? And I think that might actually change that, having so many new dungeons in every season. And then additionally, it's also going to help the barrier of entry as well, because if it's the 3rd season of M+, and it's the same dungeon still from the 1st season, and you have never really played M+, that expansion, then it's going to be really hard for you to get into it, because so many players have played these dungeons hundreds of times, and they know every little small detail about it, but you as a new player, or maybe someone who just wants to get into M+, you have no idea what even is going on, right? And I think completely cycling out the whole dungeon pool is going to help that a lot, because then you have 8 completely new M+ dungeons that the other players don't know the routes for either, and they don't know every detail about it, so it's just going to feel fresh, easier for people to get into if they want from one season to the other, and so on. So I'm a fan of this, and it's possible that it's not going to work out. It's possible that people maybe don't like the old dungeons, or they would rather play the new ones and whatnot, but I think it's worth a try. Because if this works out and people actually like this system, then I think it's going to be good in the long run. So I think it's okay if they try this, even if some people think it's going to turn out badly. It's hard to tell right now, right? I think it's going to turn out well. Other people think it's going to turn out badly. What do you guys think about it? Just let me know in the comments below your opinion about the new dungeon cycling system. Let me know what you think. They will adjust the loot table. That is something that people were concerned about. People were concerned about maybe old items from old dungeons being like weird, like the stats are weird, because back then the game worked completely differently. Maybe the trinkets are weird, and Blizzard said that they're going to adjust the loot table from the old dungeons to basically match the new dungeons, to have the same amount of trinkets, the same amount of rings, snacks, whatever, to make sure that the loot tables are kind of similar and equally good. And then other things that people were concerned about was, let's say your best trinket is IQD, right? An inscrutable quantum device from the other side. And then in the in second season, the other side is not an Plus dungeon anymore. Then your trinket is going to stay low item level. It's not going to be able to go to the new item level, right? And people were concerned if that's the case for your class, then it's going to feel bad, right? And Blizzard addressed this issue. They said that is the case, and a low item level trinket would still be your best trinket, even if there are new, better trinkets, new higher item level trinkets. Then they will nerf the previous ones and just buff the new ones to make sure that this is not happening, which I think is good, because no one wants to wear trinkets that are like 50 item levels lower than your current ones, just because the trinket is like over budget for your class. So they said they will address that, and then they can just tune around it, right? So the new trinkets that are actually scaling up, I'm sure there's one trinket that is going to be good for your class as well. And if that means that overall your class might be doing less DPS compared to if you would have the other trinket on high item level, then they can adjust it with class tuning as well, technically, right? So I think that's going to be fun. Then they also just talked about the less borrowed power thing that I already talked about earlier, where they basically just said they want to do a lot less borrowed power. They want to remove all of this kind of like legendary thing and the renown and soul binds and the whole covenant thing, like all of this kind of borrowed power, Azerite armor, essences, like all that kind of stuff. They want to remove all of that and put most of the player power into your talent tree, because of course a talent tree is not borrowed power, right? Talents are your talents and you keep them. They're not going to take them away eventually, and that's the goal of this new talent system. You want to put most of your power in there so your class feels strong by itself. You don't need a million things to make your class feel good. And I love that. I love that they changed that, because I think, especially Shadowlands BFA, if you didn't have any borrowed power, your class felt like it's not even a class. Like it felt like incredibly boring and it felt like there's stuff missing, right? So I really like that. But they also said there's still going to be tier sets, which of course are also borrowed power. But I think people generally really like tier sets, especially because they're specifically made for your spec. So they usually, or at least the recent tier sets really affected the way you play. It made your class feel better, your rotation feel better. So people like tier sets. And it's also going to make the expansion really fresh, because each tier, each raid, we're going to get different tier sets, I presume. And that means that it's going to be fresh because you lose the previous tier set, but you gain new ones. And then your rotation might be different. Maybe you play a different spec, maybe you play different talents, and it's just gonna make everything feel fresh. They said there's not gonna be any other borrowed power as far as they have planned so far. So there's not gonna be legendaries like we had them in Shadowlands or BFA or Legion. There's not gonna be, any other big borrowed power systems. But they did say they're not gonna stop making borrowed power items if it fits the kind of raid. So for example, like a Sylvanas legendary bow, right? So if that happens, if they create a raid and it just makes sense to make this item legendary, then they will do that. But no other like systems that are throughout the whole expansion. And they also said that they're going to be planning on expanding on the talent system in future expansions as well. So the talent tree will stay, and then next expansion after Dragonflight, they're just going to add talents. And they also acknowledge that this is not going to be working forever. They're not going to be able to expand on that talent tree for 20 years, right? But they did say that it's definitely going to work for like 3-4 expansions. And then it's going to be a problem for the future devs, is what they said, right? They're not looking so far into the future, because they want to make sure the system is good now. And then in the future, maybe they go back to the old system again, like we have it now, who knows? But yeah, that's it about what we know so far, at least the major points. And I personally think it sounds really exciting. I love everything about this. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing more information, testing more things, maybe on alpha and beta. And yeah, I just want to see the dragons. I want to see the new class, the new race. I want to see the talent system. And yeah, I'm incredibly excited. What do you think about the new expansion reveal? Is there something that you would have liked to see? Is there something that you're not too excited about? What did you like? What you didn't like? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you very much for watching. I appreciate that. If you have any other questions or if you want to talk to me, you can hop over to twitch.tv/Naguura. And remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet for more videos like these. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.